News tonight out of Brentwood, where two people were found dead at the home of award-winning actor and director Rob Reiner.
In today's media world, stories involving famous families often move faster than facts. This is especially true when something serious is believed to have happened behind closed doors. In this hypothetical case study, we examine how news, silence, and speculation can turn an ordinary investigation into a storm of rumors. Imagine a well-known Hollywood family living in a calm and wealthy neighborhood. For years, the area has been known for privacy, high walls, and little public drama. Neighbors rarely speak to the media, and paparazzi usually stay away. Life appears quiet and controlled, the way many celebrity families prefer it. But one day, emergency vehicles arrive. Streets are blocked. Officers go in and out of a large home. No details are shared at first, and that silence becomes the spark that lights everything else. At the beginning, authorities do what they always do in serious situations. They secure the location, limit access, and begin collecting information. This does not mean a crime has been confirmed, but in the public eye, those steps already suggest something serious. News helicopters hover overhead. Social media users begin posting blurry photos and short videos. Some posts are honest questions, while others quickly jump to strong conclusions. When famous names are involved, people often assume the worst before any facts are confirmed. This is not because people are cruel, but because human nature is drawn to mystery, fear, and dramatic stories. Within hours, online headlines start to appear. Many of them are written in emotional language. Words like shock, mystery, and dark questions are used even though no official explanation has been given. The lack of information creates a gap, and that gap is quickly filled by guesses. Some people claim to know someone close to the family. Others repeat old interviews, past arguments, or unrelated moments from years earlier. Slowly, a picture begins to form in the public mind, even though it is built on pieces that do not truly fit together. One important part of this situation is how family members are treated during early investigations. In any serious case, authorities speak to relatives. This is normal. It helps investigators understand timelines, relationships, and daily routines. However, when this happens in a high-profile family, the public often misunderstands it. A simple interview can be described as questioning, and questioning can be wrongly described as suspicion. Soon, one family member becomes the focus of online attention. Not because of evidence, but because people need a face for their story. As hours turn into a full day, reporters gather outside the home. They search for small details. They ask neighbors if they heard anything unusual. Some neighbors say they heard raised voices at times. Others say they noticed nothing at all. These comments, which mean very little on their own, repeated again and again across platforms. Context is lost. A normal family disagreement, something that happens in many homes, is suddenly framed as a warning sign. The story grows, not because new facts are discovered, but because old moments are being reshaped to fit a dramatic narrative. This is where silence plays a powerful role. Families are often advised not to speak while authorities are still working. Silence protects legal rights and prevents confusion. But in the public eye, silence can look like guilt or fear. When no one speaks, others speak instead. Commentators, influencers, and anonymous users step in to explain what they think happened. Each version is slightly different, but they all share one thing: confidence without proof. What makes this situation even more intense is the way modern media works. Algorithms reward content that gets strong reactions. Calm updates do not spread as quickly as emotional claims. A careful statement saying, "We do not know yet," is less popular than a bold headline suggesting a hidden truth. As a result, the loudest voices often shape the conversation, even if they are the least accurate. This creates pressure on everyone involved, including investigators, journalists, and the family itself. By the end of the first day, the hypothetical case has already taken on a life of its own. Many people believe they understand what happened, even though the real investigation has barely begun. This shows how quickly public opinion can form and how difficult it is to correct once it has settled. In high-profile situations, truth does not arrive first. Attention does. As this hypothetical situation continues, attention shifts toward one particular family member. This person is not accused of anything by authorities, but they become central to the public story. Why does this happen? Often, it is because people look for simple explanations to complex situations. When something tragic or confusing occurs, the human mind wants a clear cause and a clear figure to focus on. In stories involving families, that focus often falls on those closest to the situation. Authorities may ask this family member to share information about recent days. This includes phone calls, visits, or plans. Again, this is standard practice. But when these routine steps are reported without context, they can sound serious. Words matter. Assisting investigators, and being questioned, can describe the same event, yet they feel very different to the public. Media outlets that choose stronger language may attract more attention, even if they do not intend to mislead. At the same time, older stories begin to resurface. Past interviews, comments, or disagreements are pulled from archives. These moments may have been harmless at the time, but now they are presented under a new light. A quote about creative differences, personal struggles, or family pressure is suddenly framed as evidence of deeper conflict. This is how narratives are built. Not from new facts, but from old material rearranged to support a new idea. Social media plays a major role here. Short clips and partial quotes spread quickly. Context is removed to save time or space. A sentence that once meant growth or learning can be turned into a sign of anger or resentment. Once this happens, correction becomes difficult. People who have already formed an opinion rarely go back to check the full story. They move forward, sharing what fits their belief. Another factor is financial speculation. In many high-profile cases, people quickly assume money must be involved. They ask questions about inheritance, control, or business disagreements. Even without evidence, these ideas feel logical to some viewers because they match stories they have seen before. Movies, shows, and past scandals have trained audiences to expect certain patterns. When reality does not clearly explain itself, fiction fills the gap. Meanwhile, the emotional toll on those involved is rarely discussed. Being at the center of public suspicion, even without accusation, can be overwhelming. Every movement is watched. Every silence is judged. Friends and co-workers may hesitate to speak publicly, fearing their words will be misused. This isolation can make a person seem distant or cold, even if they are simply trying to survive a painful moment. Journalists face their own challenges during this stage. Responsible reporting requires patience and restraint. But patience is hard to maintain in a competitive environment. When one outlet publishes a bold claim, others feel pressure to respond. Even careful reporters may begin their sentences with "sources say" or "reports suggest," language that sounds cautious but still spreads unconfirmed ideas. Over time, these suggestions begin to feel like facts. Experts often warn that early narratives are rarely accurate. Investigations take time. Evidence must be collected, tested, and reviewed. But public interest does not wait. By the time official conclusions are reached, many viewers have already moved on or made up their minds. This is one of the greatest challenges in modern media. The speed of attention is faster than the speed of truth. In this hypothetical case study, the focus on one family member becomes a lesson in how quickly cooperation can be mistaken for guilt. It shows how easily a person's role can be misunderstood when stories are told without full context. More importantly, it reminds us that absence of information does not equal presence of wrongdoing. As time passes in this hypothetical scenario, the intensity of public discussion slowly begins to fade. New stories take over headlines. However, the effects of the speculation do not disappear so easily. Reputations can be damaged long before facts are established. Emotional harm can last much longer than public attention. This is why it is important to step back and ask what lessons can be learned from situations like this. One key lesson is the power of framing. The way a story is introduced often determines how it will be understood. If early coverage focuses on mystery and fear, audiences will look for danger. If coverage focuses on process and patience, audiences may be more willing to wait. This does not mean stories should be boring or incomplete, but they should be careful. Accuracy should come before drama. Another lesson is about silence. While silence can protect legal rights, it also creates space for speculation. This places families in a difficult position. Speaking too early can cause confusion or legal problems. Speaking too late can allow false stories to grow. There is no perfect answer, but understanding how silence is interpreted can help people prepare for its effects. This case study also highlights the responsibility of viewers. Every click, share, and comment helps shape what kind of content is rewarded. When audiences support careful reporting, media outlets are encouraged to provide it. When audiences reward extreme claims, those claims become more common. In this way, viewers are not just consumers of news, but participants in its creation. Fame adds another layer to this issue. Public figures often lose the right to privacy during moments of crisis. Their pain becomes content. Their families become characters. This can make it difficult to remember that behind the headlines are real people dealing with real emotions. Separating curiosity from compassion is not always easy, but it is necessary. Finally, this hypothetical story reminds us that investigations are not stories with simple endings. They are complex processes that require time, evidence, and care. Jumping to conclusions may feel satisfying, but it rarely leads to truth. Waiting for verified information may feel slow, but it protects everyone involved. In the end, the most important question is not who we suspect first, but how we choose to respond when we do not yet know the full story. Do we fill the silence with rumors, or do we allow space for facts to emerge? The answer to that question shapes not only individual cases, but the culture of media itself. Rob Reiner has long been known as one of Hollywood's most respected and successful figures. For decades, his name has been associated with creativity, stability, and influence. He directed and produced films that became cultural landmarks, projects that shaped the careers of many actors and writers, and stories that remained relevant long after their release. Because of this long career, Rob Reiner also became extremely wealthy. Public estimates from business magazines and entertainment reporting have often placed his total assets in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This wealth came not from one single success, but from years of consistent work, ownership stakes in production companies, real estate investments, and ongoing income from film rights and royalties. To the public, the Reiner family appeared to represent a version of the American dream, where creative success led to both financial security and long-term stability. But behind the image of success, like many powerful families, there were complex personal dynamics that rarely reached public attention. Rob Reiner had 4 children, and while he often spoke about his career in interviews, he was far more private when it came to family matters. Over the years, major entertainment outlets noted that there was very little public discussion about inheritance plans or the future structure of the family's wealth. While this is not unusual, in families with significant financial power, uncertainty can quietly create tension. Experts who study wealthy family systems have explained that when expectations are unclear, emotional pressure can grow, especially for children who feel less secure in their role or future. These pressures do not always appear as open conflict. Instead, they often exist beneath the surface, shaping relationships over time. In the case of the Reiner family, public attention later began to focus on one child in particular. Nick Reiner. Compared to his siblings, Nick was often described in media coverage as having a more difficult and unstable path. While his brothers and sisters generally followed clearer career directions and maintained lower public profiles, Nick's life story included long periods of struggle. This contrast did not automatically mean conflict, but it did create a visible difference in how each family member was perceived. According to interviews Nick gave years earlier, his challenges began at a young age. Growing up in a famous household came with structure, expectations, and pressure. Nick explained that as a teenager, he began experimenting with behaviors that initially seemed like common youthful rebellion. However, over time, those behaviors became more intense and disruptive. His daily routine collapsed. He stayed awake for long stretches, skipped school, and lost a sense of normal rhythm. Family members later described moments when he could no longer separate day from night. Eventually, his parents made the difficult decision to seek professional help. Nick was admitted to a treatment facility just before turning 15. Rob Reiner later described this moment as one of the most painful decisions of his life, but one he felt was necessary. Unfortunately, that first treatment did not end the struggle. Over the following years, Nick moved in and out of multiple treatment centers across California and nearby states. By his own account, he entered treatment 17 times. Each time, there was hope that stability would finally take hold. And each time, that stability lasted only briefly. Nick described his life during those years as constantly unfinished, always preparing to leave, never able to fully settle. This pattern placed increasing strain on family relationships. Nick later said that there were periods when he rejected the rules his family set for him, including where he lived, how he was supervised, and what kind of daily structure he was expected to follow. When those disagreements grew stronger, Nick chose distance. He left Los Angeles and began moving across the country. For years, he lived without a permanent address, traveling through states like Maine, New Jersey, and Texas. During that time, he slept outdoors, in parking lots, and in public spaces. Weeks sometimes passed without any contact with family members. According to summaries published by American news outlets, Nick encountered occasional minor issues with local authorities during this period. These incidents were described as non-serious and administrative in nature, but they contributed to the image of a life without stability. There were no widely reported serious criminal convictions, but the pattern reinforced public perception of ongoing struggle. Later, many of these experiences became the basis for the film Being Charlie, which Nick co-wrote and which Rob Reiner directed. The film was widely recognized as deeply personal. Critics noted that it felt less like fiction and more like a reflection of lived experience. For some viewers, it offered insight into addiction, family tension, and the feeling of being disconnected even while surrounded by support. In later interviews, Nick said that in recent years he had returned to Los Angeles, lived near his family, and attempted to rebuild his life. He spoke about trying to close painful chapters and move forward. Yet, as media observers often note, public narratives rarely disappear completely. Once a story is known, it can resurface at unexpected moments. And when tragedy later entered the Reiner family's life, those earlier chapters were suddenly revisited, examined, and reinterpreted through a much darker lens. When tragedy struck the Reiner household, the public reaction was immediate and intense. In situations involving prominent families, attention often moves faster than confirmed information. News spreads quickly, while details emerge slowly. In this case, official sources released only limited statements, and authorities remained careful about what they shared. This silence created space for speculation, something that frequently happens when a well-known name is involved. Media coverage began to look backward, revisiting Nick Reiner's past and asking how earlier struggles might fit into the present moment. Psychologists interviewed by major networks often caution against this kind of retroactive interpretation. They explain that when a crisis occurs, the human mind searches for patterns and explanations, even when connections are unclear or non-existent. Long-standing family tension, personal challenges, and past instability can easily be misread as signs of future behavior, even when there is no factual basis for such conclusions. In Nick's case, his history of treatment and wandering became part of the narrative once again. Commentators spoke about how individuals who experience repeated cycles of instability may be viewed more suspiciously during moments of crisis. However, experts also stress that struggle does not equal wrongdoing. Many people with difficult pasts go on to live peaceful, law-abiding lives. The danger lies in allowing perception to replace evidence. During this time, public curiosity extended beyond Nick himself and turned toward the rest of the Reiner family. Observers noted that Rob Reiner's other children remained silent. There were no interviews, no personal statements, and no visible reactions shared with the public. According to Hollywood journalists, this silence was not unusual. In high-profile situations, families often choose restraint to avoid misinterpretation. Anything said too early can be taken out of context or used to fuel speculation. The family's official response, released through a representative, focused only on grief and requested privacy. It did not address investigations, theories, or individual family members. To some members of the public, this restraint felt unsettling. In an age where information is constant, silence can feel louder than words. Outside the family's Brentwood home, reporters gathered, cameras waited, and questions multiplied. Over the next day, several figures from Rob Reiner's long professional circle were seen visiting the residence. Longtime friends arrived quietly and left without comment. These visits were interpreted in different ways by observers. Some saw them as signs of support during a painful time. Others viewed them as moments of private mourning away from public scrutiny. What was clear was that those closest to the family chose not to engage with the media.